not done yet because we finished the sermon on the amount of energy we're willing to put into this. We're really just beginning. I've got the rest of the summer. It's a long Bible, as you can tell, so stay with me. We have been looking at, again, the 7 statements in the Sermon on the Amount of energy you're willing to put into this. And my very short but quick review, we're standing in the doorway now of the essential essence of all that is. The invisible heaven is here. World we live in is appearing to be out here. This is actually an illusion. It is not real, but while we're here, don't it seem real? Yeah? It seems like we're physical and we're real and we got problems and stuff going on and I got a lot of things to take care of. When we're engrossed in the teachings, however, the centers of the spiritual energies in us are awakened. They're called the chakras, or the 12 Powers of Man by Charles Fillmore. And have been talking about the 7 different centers. We talked about the first one being poor in spirit. How poor am I when I don't remember my oneness with God? I don't collect my inheritance because I feel separate and alone. The second chakra, we said, was mourning. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Be good for the new people. You know this already. You shall be comforted. Mourning means what? It means you lose something. You let go of something. There's a period of overlap there where it feels like you're sacrificing something. That's good. You're on the path. Then we talked about the meek shall inherit the earth, the power center. Meekness isn't weakness, but incredible strength. And then we went to, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. And then we moved to, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain. The mercy you give is the mercy you first received for whom? You. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. When your heart is open, your spiritual eye is connected to your heart, you see God everywhere, face to face, in every face that you see. And then we went to the blessed are the peacemakers, for they're called the children of God. So here you are now. I know some of you have been at this a long, long time. A lot of hours on the cushion, a lot of spiritual work, a lot of books that you've read. And here's this wonderful energy that you now step into. And the Bible tells you, after you're awakened in such an enlightened way, here's what you can expect. Look what happens next to you. Blessed are those who then are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Wait a minute. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who went before you. Now, wait a minute. That's not what I was looking forward to. I wanted to get prosperity and a new car and a perfect relationship, and I want the economy to be great, and I want the right president to be elected to office, and come on now, this is not what I was expecting in 2012, please. To be despicably used? What does this mean? I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean what most people who practice it think it means. It doesn't mean you're supposed to run around feeling punished and deprived like a victim of circumstances, and then when you die, you'll go to some place called heaven and sit near Jesus if you were good enough, and probably you weren't. Yes? That's not what it means. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is spiritual consciousness. It's how you meet anything in your life. If you can meet whatever happens to you with a sense of no judgment, no attachment, and surrender, rich shall be in your moment that you do that, your reward in the queendom of heaven consciousness. Yeah? When you don't get hooked. This is the great reward that comes in consciousness when we're under the banner of these teachings, and we're all under the banner of these teachings. The other secret, you want to know the secret to persecution? You want to know? Yes. You want to know who's persecuting you? Say yes, I do, Reverend, tell me. Yes. There's no one persecuting you but you. There is no outside persecutor. You are persecuting yourself with your own thoughts, words, and deeds. You keep persecuting yourself. No one's doing it to you. Everything in life, as Eric Butterworth will say, happens through you. And anyone who shows up as an outside persecutor is showing you some place in you where you get to do some deeper work. Course in Miracles says it this way. It is not necessary, and of course the Course is always the ultimate. It is not necessary to perceive any form of assault in persecution, because you, the real you, Christ in you, the Buddha in you, cannot be persecuted. If you respond with anger, you must be equating yourself with the destructible, and therefore regarding yourself insanely. So congratulations if you feel persecuted. Good for you. Hello again, persecutor. Thanks for showing up again. God, I sure missed you. Here it is back again, this form of persecution, where we feel alone and isolated, like the world's doing it to us. We were sitting with a bunch of Unity ministers up real late, 9:30. Nobody can stay up late anymore. It's 10 o'clock. I have to go to bed now. Can't eat too late, so I can't digest food anymore. It's just a body, right? And we were doing our little conversation about the great gift of being a part of these teachings that we have. And we were talking about our families of origin, and this one particular woman was talking about her family, and it could have been anybody's family, my family, of course. And she was saying, you know, I have 3 siblings, of which I am one. And the oldest sibling never got over feeling persecuted by our tyrannical father. He was a tyrant. He ruled everything with an iron fist. He was a tyrant and a persecutor. He persecuted each one of us, but each one of us, I noticed, she said, received the persecution in a different way. This one particular sibling never got over feeling persecuted. For her, the persecutions never ended. He has been dead for 28 years. She is in her 60s and still feels persecuted by our Father. Do you feel that now? Keeps living the same thing over and over and over again and sees no way out. And guess who keeps showing up at her door? Dad! As the persecutor, at work, at job, at play. Everything that she's ever been afraid of and felt persecuted by keeps finding a new body to come in and show you. I'm here again. Hello. Hello. The second child sort of dealt with it by denying it and still gets chased by it. Better approach, but not much more. And she goes, what I'm grateful for, what I'm really grateful for in my own life is that I have these teachings and I have been able to embody this sense of outer persecution by inwardly looking at where it is in myself where I still need to do my deeper work. And I'm so grateful that I have that in my life. And now, what I notice is that not only am I grateful for the teachings, but I also feel blessed by my Father's presence in my life. He was a perfect example of what doesn't work. He was completely unhappy all of the time. And so I got to look at, well, how can I not be like him and turn towards that which can bring me happiness? He is no longer a persecutor. He is a blessing in my life. I put him back on the altar. And now when I see his face, I see divine grace. And I'm grateful for the role he got to play in my life for getting me on the path. So here's 3 different people. You know who they are. And here's you and I with the teachings. The only hope are those of us who have the teachings. Rejoice and be glad in whatever form the persecutor might be appearing in your life. And by the way, let me say this. You are someone's persecutor. Someone's having a conversation about you right now, about what a pain in the you are with them. So don't think I'm talking about somebody else other than you. Persecution. All the masters were persecuted. Jesus said, I was persecuted just as you are, but I chose to have a different evaluation of what was going on in myself. Therefore, I, me, God, Christ in consciousness, was not persecuted by the appearances. I used it to keep lifting up the energy to the heart, to the crown, to the top of the head. We're called upon to do the same thing. And you know, just coming to unity, and I know you've all faced this, there is a certain form of people, nobody bad, not judging anyone, who will persecute you for being here, for being in these teachings. Who will try to revile you, despicably use you, and tell you you're making a mistake by being in this teaching. I know that. I've had that happen to me. And I remember my first incident of that as an official unity minister. 32 years old, it's 1982, I've got a really busy life like Brad and all you people with all you kids, and it's all going on in my first church, and there's a landlord who we rent our place from, our house from, she's got some stuff in a barn. She's every so often going to come by and pick some things up. So I decided to invite her in to have tea at her house, my house. So I said, please come on in, have some tea with us, and we sat down, and I'm sitting there on a chair, and I've got Kristen, our handicapped daughter, who's 40 pounds, and you know, she has physical challenges, and I'm bouncing her on my knee and holding her, and she walks over and touches, you know, Kristen's head and says, what a beautiful child, and I said yes. And while we're talking, just for a few moments now, this is the conversation that we had, all of a sudden she stands up and goes, what is that doing here? And she points at my altar. My altar. She says, what is this? I said, well, it's a statue of Buddha. She said, wait a minute, aren't you a Christian minister? And I said, well, you know how you answer that when someone asks you if Unity's Christian. Well, kind of, sort of, maybe, yeah, mystical, metaphysical, kundalini, lifting up a child alongside of me. You kind of have your answer. And she's saying, you know, but it's hard to sometimes really nail it because you know what's being asked. And she said some words that I'll never forget. She said, well, maybe God isn't healing your daughter of her terminal illness because you have that graven image in your house. And I'm sitting there going, the absolute audacity of someone who doesn't know me to assume so much about me and be so sure about her own thought system. I was stunned. I was, believe it or not, speechless. But when she walked out the door, my speechify came back. I was roaring with lower chakra energy spinning, which went on for weeks and weeks and months and months. The beauty of that form of that persecution was that it came so strong and so suddenly that it allowed me to work with something in a very difficult way that would be with me for the rest of my life. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for the sake of truth, for yours will be the kingdom of heaven. Doesn't mean everything's going to go easy for you. It just means you'll have to be sure of what's going on inside of you. And I remember walking over to my altar after she left. And you know how you get physically shaky when something like that happens? My whole body was literally just shaking. And of course, you know how God is. She had sitting on the altar my book that I had just bought, The Second Coming of Christ, The Resurrection of the Christ Within, a revelatory commentary on the original teachings of Jesus Christ. And I opened it up, shaking. And from the Bhagavad Gita we read this: he who is tranquil before friend and foe alike, and in encountering adoration and insult, enduring the experiences of warmth and chill, of pleasure and suffering, who has relinquished attachment, regarding blame and praise in the same light, regarding blame and praise in the same light, who is quiet and easily contented, not attached to domesticity, and of calm disposition and devotional, that person is near and dear to me. And then Yogananda goes on to say, one must follow what one knows to be right in spite of criticism. Everyone should honestly, without egotistical bias, analyze himself, and if she is right, she should hold to her joy-producing righteous actions uninfluenced by either praise or blame. But if you're wrong, you should be glad and rejoice for the opportunity to correct yourself and thus remove one more obstacle to lasting happiness. Even unjust criticism will make the disciple, you and me, purer than ever, and enthuse her with all the more to follow the ways of inner peace instead of yielding to temptations urged on by bad company. I particularly like that last part. I'm thinking about Natisha Lunkin. I'm saying the word wrong, you know, I'm not very good with that. I'm thinking about her and her moment at the Olympic trials. I love the Olympics. How many are watching the Olympics? I love the trials. I love all that stuff. I love to push my body and work out and all that kind of good stuff. and she's on the uneven parallel bars. Do you remember that moment? And her father, hint, hint, her coach, hint, hint, is right there with her. Her father, her coach, picks her up and puts her on the uneven parallel bars. She begins to go through her routine that she's practiced for years. She's spinning around, and then all of a sudden, you guys probably saw it, right? She missed the last bar. She fell flat on her face.
Oh my God.
And the whole auditorium, packed with people, was absolutely quiet. In that moment, this is you now. Her father, her coach, was there, supporting her in whatever decision she wanted to do at that moment. It was up to her to do what she wanted to do. The cameras zeroed in on her face. And she got up and she looked like she'd like to just go off somewhere and cry. But that isn't what she did. She walked over to the chalk. Yeah. She chalked her hands up with the chalk. And she did a cosmic redo of that moment. And she got back up. Her father helped her because that was the choice she was making. And she finished her whole routine. And when she got off, she jumped down and went like this.
All right.
And the whole universe proclaimed the glory of God, the glory of the Lord. I will not be persecuted by this moment for the rest of my life. I will choose to serve the living God. The strength of that moment in your life is so powerful too. But you got to be willing to chalk it up, friends, and move on, right? So I had a thought about, well, I guess now it's been 2 months. It's time to invite my persecutor over for tea again. I want to have a redo. I can do this. So I invited them to come into my house again for some tea. And of course I chalked up before they came in. I'd done my meditation. There was no anger left in me, but I still had a little bit of a charge with it. I'm pretending that I didn't. And I went over and I adjusted my pictures on my altar just so they could be nice and clear and crisp. I had this brand new one, which is confusing. It's Jesus in a full lotus. For those of you watching this on YouTube, it's Jesus sitting in a full lotus. If anybody thinks he didn't sit in a full lotus, ha! Woe unto you! And then I have Paramahansa Yogananda on the other side. I invited the persecutor into my house. Do you feel this? I invited her in. You have to invite them in. You can't leave them outside the door, because then you'll still be persecuted by it. Bring it in. Bring it in. We sat and we had tea. And there was no charge left in me for anything other than, thank you for the great blessing you gave me 3 months ago. It's allowed me to do the deeper work. Do you feel that now? This is your life. Somebody asked me, well, what did she do? What did she say? She said absolutely nothing about anything religious at all. Because whatever it was for her, something had changed in her, but the point had nothing to do with that. Even if she had the same thing to say all over again, my only response would have been to bow to her. You don't change anyone's mind, you change your own mind. I can choose once again, anytime I want to see this anew. I can chalk up, get back on the bar, get back into my life, and make it happen, make it so. So this week, Paul, while you're working on this, because I know we all have persecutors knocking at our door, remember that the persecutor will keep pursuing you until you bless him or her. I make a prediction. Until you bless that which is persecuting you, it will keep pursuing you. Allow it in. Every time you allow the persecutor to become a blessing in disguise, you will rejoice and be glad, exceedingly glad, and great will be your reward in the kingdom of heaven consciousness. Say amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. This is what we're here for. This is our Olympic gold medal moment, 2012, right here, right now. Listening to these teachings, you are willing to take this on. And my friends, you do it not just for you, but for the benefit of all beings everywhere. Practice well, practice deeply. Bless those persecutors. It'll confuse the heck out of them. Namaste.